Big pharma, big oil, big tobacco. Every one of you in this room, you're not part of them. You're part of APP's big family. It's a double entendre, obviously, as we seek to advance the family in our elections and laws. But we seek to encourage more marriages and more children. We don't just want more families, we want bigger families. And when people find out that we have 7 kids, my wife and I, they usually ask us if we're Catholic or Mormon, which I obviously find hilarious, along with all the other questions that you get when you have as many kids as we do. But I recently rediscovered Psalm 127, and I wanted to highlight it for you all because it's made me see a major flaw in the Christian community. So Psalm 127, unless the Lord builds the house, those who build it labor in vain. Unless the Lord watches over the city, the watchman stays awake in vain. It is in vain that you rise up early and go late to rest, eating the bread of anxious toil, for he gives to his beloved sheep. Behold, children are a heritage from the Lord, the fruit of the womb, a reward. Like arrows in the hands of a mighty warrior are the children of one's youth. Happy is the man who has his quiver full of them. He shall not be put to shame when he speaks with his enemies in the gate. Having a big family should not be relegated to Catholics and Mormons. It should only be relegated to Catholics. But in all seriousness, having a large family, it should be an identifier as being simply a Christian. It should reflect all Christian sects and denominations. If we really want to do God's will, if we really believe that God is the author of all life, then we should let him plan our families. We should trust him. We should put faith in him to provide for us. And I can tell you, I don't think I would have gotten involved in this transgender fight, this $4.5 billion transgender industry, without the faith developed by having 7 children. It's really made me rely on him. But back in 2016, we had a vision to become the NRA for the American family. We knew that defending the family just in policy or op-eds wasn't enough. Evil has always targeted the family, not just for money or freedom. They want our children's souls. Op-eds might work in a true marketplace of ideas, but we're not in a marketplace of ideas. We're on a battlefield. There's no good faith attack on the American family or any family. It's an assault on goodness, beauty, truth, and love itself. Families don't need more white papers. They need a sword and people brave enough to use it. And that's you, all of you here in this room that have been helping us fight. And I'm so grateful for all of you. We went to you for, yeah, they're glad, that's fine. You know, they make me write these speeches beforehand because they don't trust what I'm going to say if I just riff. We went to you guys all for help, and together we've built something remarkable, election by election. Each cycle we've grown stronger, our messages are reaching more and more voters, we're solving new challenges, and we're gaining more allies. In 2024, we saw our efforts truly bear real fruit. Alongside APP's $18 million, Republicans led by none other than Donald J. Trump, invested over $215 million countering Democratic extremism on trans issues. This year was our biggest victory yet, but it mustn't be our last. I want to emphasize how critical Donald Trump championing this issue was for not just saving our children, but for winning our elections. If you look at the 2020 election, the 2022 election versus 2024, 2020 and 2022, they had the same issues: economics, security, border, safety. The culture war was the one new thing, the one new front that Republicans fought on in 2024, and it led to winning the popular vote for the first time since 2004. And I don't think we get that leadership without Donald Trump. This year was our biggest victory yet, but it cannot be our last biggest victory. Our challenge is immense. We face a $4.5 billion transgender industry, and I want everyone to know, if you're doubtful about whether or not this is an important fight to take, despite the small number of transitions of the 1.3 million estimated Americans that identify as trans, if they're able to transition all 1.3 million Americans, this won't be a $4.5 billion industry. It'll be a $200 billion industry. To put that in perspective, that's bigger than the film industry. So what do we do with this fierce and merciless enemy known as the trans industry? Well, I have very specific things I'm going to tell you about, and then I got some figurative things. First thing we got to do is we got to be bulldogs for President Trump and his pro-family agenda. He's made aggressive pledges to protect our children through executive orders, and we need to have his back and defend them and rip apart anyone that gets in the way of that agenda. Secondly, we need to work with Congress, senators, and houses of representatives to get votes on these issues, on these bills in Congress, so that we can hold the corrupt politicians that are subsidizing the transgender industry and the destruction of our children accountable in the 2026 election. And third, we must continue the political momentum behind opposing the transgender industry. An American Principles Project next year will be spending over $5 million in the New Jersey and Virginia state races to make sure that politicians are held accountable on their trans extremism. Figuratively, what we do is very simple. We burn the boats. When Hernan Cortez landed on the shores of Mexico in 1519, he and his crew were faced with a vast unknown land and a formidable enemy in the Aztec Empire. Cortez knew the challenges his men would face, and they saw firsthand the brutality of the Aztecs' human sacrifice and torture. To ensure that there was no possibility of retreat, no option for surrender, Cortez made a bold and definitive statement of commitment. He ordered his ships to be burned. The act of burning all the boats was symbolic of removing all avenues of retreat, compelling his men to fight with unwavering resolve. It was a dramatic demonstration of dedication to their cause, a psychological tactic that left them with only two choices: victory or death. Are those not the same two choices we face today for our families and our country, victory or death? We cannot compromise with those promoting sex changes for children or the left's never-ending demands. They escalated from marriage to mutilation of children. The left's paths always lead to human atrocities when not checked. So, when the left continues to push for sex changes for minors, we burn the boats. When our justice system labels parents as domestic terrorists, we burn the boats. And when men are placed in our daughters' sports or private spaces and showers, we burn those friggin' boats. Families have the most at stake in America's future, and I'd frankly rather die than see any of the Schilling lineage harmed by these tyrants. And I believe that many of you in the room feel the same way. So thank you all for helping us get here. But I also want to thank you for something else. We have less than 2 years to get as much done as possible before the 2026 midterms. And I'm going to need your help now more than ever. You can count on me and the entire APP team to be giving even more of ourselves than we already have. But all of that will be worth a lot less if we don't have you all behind us even more. We're burning our boats, and we need you to burn your boats too. There's no way out of this fight but through. So thank you in advance for all of the additional help that I know we'll be able to count on you in the future.